8th standard English. Students, now we are going to learn about Unit 3 Supplementary, the 3 questions. The author of this story, Leo Tolstoy. We have 2 sections in this story. Now we are going to learn about section 1. There was a king who had 3 questions in his mind, that if he always knew the right time to begin everything, so which is the best time to do our work? If he know who were the right people to listen to, and so just we have to learn about this author, then we will continue our this story about the poet. See the author. Leo Tolstoy, 1828 to 1910, was a Russian writer who is regarded as one of the greatest authors of all times. He is best known for novels War and Peace, 1869, and Anna Karenina, 1877. So just let us start our story. Whom to avoid, and above all, if he always knew what was the most important thing to do, he would never fail in anything he might undertake. So which is best time to do our work? So that is the first question. And this thought having occurred to him, he had proclaimed, which means announced officially. He had it announced officially throughout his kingdom that he would give a great reward to anyone who would teach him what was the right time for every action. So what was the right time for every action? So not only a particular work, so every action, which is the best time. So that is the 3 questions. So through the title itself, we can easily identify that 3 questions. Okay, so 3 questions is available in this story. And it's through having occurred to him, he had proclaimed throughout his kingdom that he would give a great reward to anyone who would teach him what was the right time for every actions. Okay, and who were the most necessary people? Who were the most necessary people to us? And how he might know what was the most important thing to do? Who was the most necessary people, and which time is best time to do that? And learned men came to the king. And learned men came to the king. There is one king. Every human being, every person came to learn from the king, but they all answered his questions differently. The king raised 2 questions first, but everyone said different answers. In reply to the first question, some said that to know the right time for every action, one must draw up in advance a table of days, months, and years, and must live strictly according to it. So we must live according to that table of days, month, and years. Some said that like. Only thus, said they, would everything be done at proper time. We have to choose the proper time, then we will do that. Others declared that it was impossible to decide to beforehand the right time for every action. So that it was impossible to decide beforehand the right time for every action. So it will not possible. So how we will do that? So just we have to decide, then we will do that. That is a proper time, that is a pre-plan. So how will it possible? The someone said that like. And then others declared that it was impossible. Okay, and but that not letting oneself be absorbed, which means greatly interested, that this question is very interest to everyone, in idle pastimes. Idles, we know that that's laziness. So idle pastimes, one should always attend to all that was going on, and then do what was most needful. Others again said that however attentive the king might to be what was going on, it was impossible for one man to decide correctly the right time for every action. So the king asked to every person. So they said differently the answer. but that he should have a council of wise men who would help him to fix a proper time for everything. But the king didn't get correct answers from the persons, so that the king decided to meet the wise man. What is the wise man? The knowledgeable person. So he wants to meet the wise man. But then again others said there were some things which could not wait to be laid before a council, but about which one had at once to decide whether to undertake them or not. But in order to decide that, one must know beforehand what was going to happen. So before we going to the wise man, so what was going to happen? So what we have said, did you analyze my question whether it is not or okay? So that's they asked to the king. And then in order to know the right time for every action, one must consult a magician. Equally, various were the answers to the second question. Some said the people king most needed were his counselors, others the priest, others the doctors, while some said that various warriors were the most necessary. The second question, others said what they have said here. Most needed were his counselors, others priest. Some of them said priest, others doctors. So they are legend. Okay, so they said that like, while some said the warriors were the most necessary. To the third question, as to what was the most important occupation. So what was the important occupation? Some replied, what did they reply? That the most important thing in the world was science. So science is important in this world. Others said, what they said? It was skill in warfare. And others again that it was religious worship. So religious worship is the occupation, the important in this world. So many of them said different answers for third questions. To the third question, as to what was the most important occupations, that's we have learned. So differently they have said. Okay, all the answers being different, the king agreed with none of them, but the king didn't believe them, didn't accept it, and gave the reward to none. So he didn't give any prize to anyone. But still wishing to find the right answers to the question, he decided to consult a hermit. Hermit is a wise man, the knowledgeable person. So now he wants to meet the hermit, widely renowned for his wisdom. Renowned, which means famous person. It is a familiar person. So that renowned, widely familiar person for his wisdom. The hermit lived in a wood which he never quartered, and he received none but common folk. So he is living alone. So no one come and meet him. So that the king put on simple clothes, and before reaching the hermit's cell, the king put on simple cloth, and before reaching the hermit place, dismounted from his horse, leaving his bodyguard behind. He went on alone. So actually he went on alone. So he didn't call the soldiers. When the king approached, the hermit was digging the ground in front of his hut. The king approached, the hermit was digging. So when he was meeting that hermit, he was doing digging on earth. So he approached. Seeing the king, he greeted him and went on digging. The hermit was frail and weak, and each time he stuck his spade into the ground and turned a little earth, he breathed heavily. The hermit breathed heavily. After that, the king asked the spade, so I will do that instead of you. So will you give it? So he asked. Then hermit gave the spade. And then the king went up to the king and said, I have come to you, wise hermit. So for what purpose I have come here, do you know? So I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you to answer 3 questions. I want to raise 3 questions. Will you help me? Who said? King asked to hermit. King reached his hermit place. How can I learn to do the right thing at the right time? So the same question he raised. So actually he has asked that peoples, the village people, but the village peoples, they didn't say the correct answers. So that he has come to the hermit place. Then he raised the three questions. The first question, what did he ask? How can I learn to do the right thing at the right time? Who are the people I most need, and to whom should I therefore pay more attention than to the rest? And what are the most important and need my first attention? The hermit listened to the king but answered nothing. Actually, the hermit listened the answers, what he has said, what he has asked the question, he listened carefully, but he didn't say any answers. He just spat on his hand and recommenced digging. So continuously he was doing his work. You are tired, said the king. Let me take the spade and work I will for you. So now you are tired. So will you give it the spade? I will do that instead of you. Thanks, said the hermit, and giving the spade to the king, he sat down on the ground. And after gave the spade and he sat on the ground. Who's that? Hermit. When he had that two pets, the king stopped and repeated the question. Again he raised the question. The hermit again gave no answer. Again he didn't say any answer, but rose, stretched out his hand for the spade and said, now rest a while and let me work a bit. So now you take rest, I will do the work. Who said? King. But the king didn't give him the spade. Hermit asked him. So okay, that's okay. Now you have to take rest. Who said? Hermit asked to king now. But the king didn't give the spade and continued to dig. He was doing continuously digging work. The king. 1 hour passed and another. The sun began to sink behind the trees, and the king at last struck the spade into the ground and said, I came to you. Again he asked, I came to you, wise man, for an answers to my questions. If you can give me none, tell me so, and I will return home. If you don't want say my questions, the answers, I will return my home. Just please say your answer. Here comes someone running, said the hermit, but he didn't say again anything. So hermit said, here comes someone running, said the hermit. Let us see who it is. So now hermit pointed to one person. He was coming. He was running to our place. Who is it? Who it is? Just he asked. Okay. So thank you, students. Next class we will continue that.